In Iraq, the American forces are in the middle of a very important battle. Miles and some of his teammates go inside a crumbling building for cover as they keep on firing at the enemy. Unfortunately, their captain is shot right in the neck and he quickly bleeds out, dying in Miles' arms. Suddenly, an explosion makes the whole building shake. Miles goes out to fight again. As he runs up a hill, a bullet hits him in the stomach and he falls to the ground. Miles looks up and sees two missile-like objects fly by, followed by a strange aircraft, which suddenly turns its light toward him and makes him scream before passing out. Sometime later, Miles wakes up in pain inside a strange room. There are no windows or doors. It's gray panels covering every inch from corner to corner. Miles forces himself to stand up and take a closer look at the wall, but his wound is bleeding heavily and he falls again. He cries out for help, but nobody answers. So he uses his emergency supplies to clean the wound and wrap it up. Then Miles tries using his radio. However, it isn't working. When he looks up, he sees the word abandon on a wall, which wasn't there before. He tries asking for help again, and this time he tries the few words he knows in Arabic, to no avail. When he looks again, the wall now says, abandon all, and the floor shows, save the sinner's soul. Miles takes another look, and now the phrase says, abandon all hope. Starting to feel dizzy, Miles takes off his backpack and his clothes, realizing the temperature in the room is going up rather quickly. Miles' body sweats like crazy and he starts freaking out, hitting the wall as he begs to be let out. His sweat boils when it drips on the ground, and Miles starts wondering if he's actually dead, slowly losing his mind and getting paranoid to the point he grabs his gun to shoot at the walls. Eventually, the heat is too much and he falls to the ground, screaming in unbearable pain before passing out. Later, when Miles wakes up, the temperature is back to normal. He rushes to grab his flask to drink some water, but at that moment the room starts spinning. Miles is thrown around with his things, getting hurt every time he lands on the spinning walls. This goes on for a few minutes, and when it finally stops, Miles notices the room is on a new position because the words are now on different spots. To his shock, some of his things are stuck on the ceiling. At first, Miles freaks out, thinking it's a dream. When he calms down, he tries the radio again, and after several minutes of silence, he hears a woman's voice, but the call quickly ends. Miles thinks the room is refracting the signal, and remembers he also has a cell phone, which is on the ceiling. He can't remember the number, so he uses his binoculars to check the sticker and carves the number on the floor with his knife. Suddenly, the phone starts ringing and Miles tries jumping to reach it, but that makes his wound worse. Next, he throws a shoe, but instead of hitting the phone, it gets stuck on the ceiling too. At that moment, frost starts appearing on the walls, so Miles rushes to put on any clothes he can reach before getting into fetal position as the frost begins covering his face as well. Moments later, the frost disappears as quickly as it came and Miles is left with purple fingers. He rubs his body in search of heat and hears the phone ring again. Suddenly, an alarm rings and the room starts moving again, making the phone fall. As Miles is painfully thrown all over the place once more, he makes sure to reach for the phone and grab it right before the spinning stops. Now he's also regained access to his helmet, so he takes out the picture of his wife and daughter to save it in his pocket. Then he eats some gum he hid before battle. Next, he checks the call log on the phone and dials the number that called him. At first, there's only static, but soon he can hear a woman's voice. She explains she's been kidnapped and she's in a spinning room. So Miles asks her to describe it and confirms she's in a room exactly like his. When the woman mentions there are no light sources, but she can still see, Miles realizes he's in the same situation and takes a closer look at his own arm. It's almost as if their bodies are the light sources themselves. Then Miles asks a few questions to learn more about the woman, but she freaks out because she thinks he's part of a scam. He snaps and yells at her, explaining he's trapped too, but also bleeding. The woman cries and apologizes, agreeing to work together. Her name is Damsey, and before she was kidnapped, she was on the highway. Miles remembers his team was near the highway. Damsey asks if he was stationed there, which makes Miles freak out because he never said he was a soldier. Damsey assures her she guessed based on the questions he asked and the way he speaks. At that moment, Damsey stops speaking and grunts in pain instead. Miles' tags are suddenly pulled back and the chain starts choking him as an invisible force opens his arms as well, making him drop the phone. His body starts floating and a bright light appears, pulling all his limbs before dropping him to the ground. Then Miles hears a weird noise and warns Damsey that the room is about to move again. However, instead of spinning, this time the walls start moving inward. Miles panics and tries to push a wall, only to fall and pass out. On the phone, Damsey can be heard being dropped too. When Miles wakes up, he discovers the room has shrunk. He has a panic attack as Damsey calls again, telling him her room has shrunk too. When she realizes what's happening to him, she guides him with soft words to calm him down. Then Damsey starts cursing because she's putting her shoulder back in. Miles notices words on the wall in languages he can't understand, and Damsey confirms they are in her room as well.